Thoughts of a sanctified man and thoughts of a cunning man. Geronda. Can one who has sanctity perceive who is cunning? Yes, he can discern the cunning man, just as he can discern the sanctity of a saint. He sees the evil, but at the same time he sees the inner man and discerns that the evil is from the tempter, the devil, stemming from the outside. Seeing through the eyes of his soul, he magnifies his own faults, while diminishing the faults of others. And what's more, he sees all these faults in truth, not falsely. He may discern that some of these faults are even crimes, but he will find some justification, in the good sense of the term, for the cunning schemes of an evil man, whom he does not despise or consider to be inferior. He may even consider the evil man as being better than him, and will knowingly tolerate him for many reasons. For example, he recognizes a criminal's evil nature, but thinks that the man may have become a criminal because he did not receive help. He even thinks that he himself could have been a criminal if God had not helped him. This is how he receives much grace. On the contrary, the cunning man, while seeing the other man's sanctity, does not know the good thoughts in his heart, as even the devil himself does not know them. He who is doing refined spiritual work justifies others, but not himself. And the more he advances spiritually, the more he is freed, and the more he loves God and other people. Then he cannot understand what evil means, for he always has good thoughts about others, and always thinks purely and sees everything in a spiritual and sanctified light. Such a person benefits even from the faults of others, which he utilizes as a strong brake on himself, in order to attend to himself and to avoid being derailed by the same faults. On the contrary, one who has not been purified within thinks cunningly, and sees everything through the dim glow of cunningness. Even good things are polluted by his cunningness. Such a person does not even benefit from the virtues of others, because he is darkened by the darkness of the man-destroying devil, and interprets the virtues through his own cunning vocabulary. He is always aggrieved, and he always grieves others by his spiritual darkness. If he desires to be liberated, he must understand that he is in need of purification, both of the mind and of the heart, which will also bring spiritual clarity. Geronda. What happens when the same person is sometimes cunning and sometimes good? In that case, a man goes through the commensurate influences and changes. Man is mutable. Cunning thoughts sometimes stem from the tempter, the devil, and at other times the man himself thinks cunningly. Often the devil creates the conditions that lead a man to evil thoughts. Once an archimandrite came to my Kelevi for the first time, but I did not get a chance to see him. The second time he came, I could not see him because I was seriously ill, and I asked him to come some other time so we could talk. When he had negative thoughts that I did not want to see him, that I had a grudge against him, so he went down to the monastery and complained. All of this comes from the evil one.